The wedding in Lagos was nothing short of a spectacle. Golden decorations shimmered under crystal lights, traditional music filled the air, and over 300 guests sat dressed in their finest aso-ebi, watching what was meant to be a perfect union. But this wedding wasn't just about love. The groom had invited someone special, his ex-wife. Not to celebrate, not to make peace, but to humiliate her, in front of everyone who once knew them. A front-row seat had been reserved, just for her. And then, just as the ceremony was about to begin, a convoy of black luxury vehicles rolled up outside. Security men stepped out first. The crowd grew silent. Then a tall, powerful man emerged, dressed in quiet wealth. He opened the door, and she stepped out, not broken, not ashamed, but radiant, powerful, untouchable. The woman he called nothing had returned like royalty. Before I tell you what happened inside that hall, you need to understand something. This is not just a story about a wedding. This is a story about a woman who was broken, silenced, and left with nothing. And how she rose, not with anger, but with power. So if you love stories where the underestimated become unstoppable, where pride is humbled, and where the truth finally takes its place, take a second to subscribe, and stay with me till the end. Because what happened next was not just unexpected. It was a moment that no one in that room would ever forget. Her name was Amara, a simple woman, raised with values that many had forgotten. Respect, loyalty, hard work. She didn't have much, but what she had, she built with her own hands. She was a skilled seamstress, known in her community for turning fabric into beauty. Quiet, humble, but full of dreams. Then she met Chinedu, a man who looked like success, spoke like power, and carried himself like a big man. Expensive clothes, flashy lifestyle, big promises. He made her feel chosen. And within months, they were married. But what looked like love quickly turned into something else. The compliments became criticism. The care became control. He began to decide how she dressed, where she went, who she spoke to. And behind her back, there were other women. Many of them. But the worst part wasn't the cheating. It was the way he made her feel. Small, worthless, invisible. In his house, she had no voice. And one night, after one final insult that broke something inside her, Amara took her children and walked away with nothing. No money, no plan, just pain and the will to survive. Amara's new life began in a single small room, far from the comfort she once called home. The walls were bare, the nights were long, and the silence was heavy. There was no husband now, no support, no safety net, just her and her children. Every morning before the sun rose, she sat behind her old sewing machine, mending clothes for people who barely knew her story. And every night, long after her children had fallen asleep, she kept working, fighting exhaustion, fighting doubt. But the world around her was not kind. Neighbors whispered behind her back. She couldn't keep her marriage. She failed as a wife. Those words cut deep. And when the divorce was finalized, it brought her no justice. No money, no help, no dignity from the man who once promised her everything. But still, she did not break. Because slowly, quietly, she stitched her broken life back together, one thread at a time. 3 years later, just when her life had found a quiet rhythm, a letter arrived. It was thick, expensive, the kind of paper that spoke of status. Amara stared at it for a long moment before opening it. A wedding invitation. His name was at the top. Chinedu. He was getting married again. Her fingers tightened slightly as her eyes moved to the bottom of the card. A handwritten note. A front row seat has been reserved for you. Come and see what a real wife looks like. For a moment, the room felt smaller. Old memories rushed back. The pain. The humiliation. Part of her wanted to tear the invitation apart, to pretend it never came. But another part of her refused to hide. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about her. And slowly, with a calm breath, Amara made her decision. She would go, not for him, but for herself. A few days after the invitation, life brought Amara somewhere unexpected. She was at the local fabric market, searching for the perfect thread for a client's dress. The place was busy, filled with voices, colors, and movement. And that's where she met him. He didn't arrive with noise, no expensive display, no loud presence. Just a calm man, standing quietly, observing. He asked her a simple question about fabric, and she answered without thinking much of it. But something felt different. He listened, truly listened, not just to her words, but to her. There was no arrogance in him, no need to impress, no attempt to dominate. Just respect. Something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Their conversation was easy, natural, like two strangers who somehow understood each other. And for the first time in years, Amara didn't feel judged. She didn't feel small. Because this man saw her value without asking about her past. For days, Amara thought she had met a simple man. Someone ordinary, someone different. But the truth revealed itself quietly. Not through words, but through presence. The way people greeted him with respect. The way doors opened before he even reached them. And finally, he told her. He wasn't just a man in the market. He was a businessman. A man who owned companies. A man whose name carried weight in rooms she had never entered. Amara stood still, trying to process it all. Shock, confusion, disbelief. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked softly. He looked at her, calm as ever. "Because I wanted you to see me, not my status." There was no pride in his voice, only honesty. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. Fear faded. Trust took its place. He stepped closer and said gently, "You will not walk into that wedding alone." Back inside the hall, the ceremony had already begun. Chinedu stood at the altar, dressed in perfection, but his eyes kept drifting toward the entrance. The front row seat was still empty. His jaw tightened. She was supposed to be there by now. She was supposed to watch and feel small. Whispers moved through the crowd as seconds turned into minutes. Then suddenly, a distant sound. Engines. Heads turned toward the entrance as a convoy of black luxury vehicles rolled to a stop outside. The music faded. The hall grew quiet. Security men stepped out first, scanning the area with precision. And then he appeared. Calm. Powerful. Unshaken. Every step he took carried presence. He walked to the other side, opened the door, and she stepped out. Amara. But not the woman they remembered. She was dressed in gold, glowing under the sunlight, walking with the grace of a queen who had nothing to prove. Gasps filled the room. Phones slowly lifted into the air. As she entered the hall, every eye followed her. Chinedu froze. His confidence gone. She walked straight to the front row, paused, and looked at him. Then, with calm strength, she spoke. "You invited me, so I came." A moment of silence. And then, "Now everyone can see what you lost." For a moment, no one spoke. Chinedu's face had lost all color. The man who once controlled everything now stood frozen, exposed. His eyes moved between Amara and the man beside her. Confusion turned into panic. This is a joke," he muttered, his voice shaking. But no one laughed, because the truth was already clear. And then, something unexpected happened. The bride, who had been standing beside him, slowly stepped back. Her eyes fixed on Amara, then on the man beside her. She understood. If he could lose a woman like that, then what did that say about him? The music had stopped. The air felt heavy. Without a word, she reached for her hand, pulled off the ring, and let it fall. The sound echoed through the silent hall. She turned and walked away. No drama, no shouting, just a decision. And in that silence, Chinedu stood alone. Not as a groom, but as a man who had just lost everything. Amara didn't look back. She simply turned and walked out of that hall with quiet dignity. No anger, no noise, just peace. The same people who once whispered about her now watched in silence, with respect. And from that day on, everything changed. Her work grew. Her name began to carry weight. What started as a small sewing hustle became a thriving business. Not because someone saved her, but because she never gave up on herself. As for Chinedu, the man who once called her nothing, lost everything that made him feel like something. His pride, his image, his control, all gone, in a single moment, because the truth finally stood in front of him. And it didn't need to shout, because her value never changed, only the person who saw it did. And sometimes, the best revenge is becoming unstoppable.